Deputy Hildegard Naughton to the Minister for Health in relation to University Hospital Galway. Please put your question. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Cairn for affording me the opportunity to raise this issue, which is one of utmost importance for the people of Galway and the broader Western region. At University Hospital Galway, we're blessed with a team of world-class doctors and healthcare professionals, but they're struggling beneath the weight of inadequate resources and unmanageable demand. As a result, as the Minister will be abundantly aware, the hospital is beset with the longest waiting lists in the country, the most cancelled procedures in the country, and frequently the highest number of patients on trolleys in the country. In the Minister's defence and that of his predecessors, it is not the case that no money has been made available for capital spending on the hospital in recent years. But in times of scarcity, it is equally important to consider how money is spent as well as how much. And it is my concern that the central government funding that has been invested in capital projects at UHG in recent years represents a wasted opportunity. I say this because the hospital campus has dated facilities and its capacity to cater for the needs of a growing and ageing population cannot be expanded due to restrictions on its current site. I wish to mention 2 of the most recent capital projects at the hospital in order to illustrate this point. This year will see the opening of a new 75-bed ward block at UHG. For some time, this prospect gave hope to people in the hospital's catchment area that it would go some way towards alleviating the seemingly perpetual overcrowding crisis in Galway. It has emerged in recent months, however, that 3 wards were being closed to make way for the new €18 million block, and that there will be no net increase in bed capacity at the hospital once its doors are opened. This was confirmed in letters from the Chief Operating Officer to the Planning Authority, in a letter to me from the hospital's General Manager, and in briefings by senior management to the group's Patient Council. A key reason for this is that the additional beds cannot be provided under the terms of the City Development Plan without creating an equal number of car parking spaces, and there is no room on the campus for additional parking. This brings me to the second capital project. The hospital undertook to build a new 2-storey parking facility on the site of an existing car park a few years ago. Remarkably, however, the net impact of this project following completion was that there would be 80 fewer car parking spaces at the hospital. Minister, we are building car parks that don't create any parking spaces and building ward blocks that don't provide extra beds. We need to stop this and to take stock of why this is happening and decide what should happen next. Given the gravity and the scale of the overcrowding crisis at UHG, I consider it a shame that scarce resources were poorly utilised on capital projects that would offer no respite from the crisis. It is one thing in the midst of an economic crisis to say that there is no money. It's quite another to have money but to waste it in a way that would do anything other than confer the maximum possible benefit on the maximum number of people. And that, I fear, is what has come to pass in the 2 instances that I have outlined today. The present situation is not tenable, Minister. Put simply, the region's population is going to grow, but the hospital's capacity is going to remain the same. The sooner we come to the realisation that a longer-term vision is required in the form of a new facility on the grounds of Merlin Park Hospital, which is on state-owned land, the sooner we can restore confidence that the current and future healthcare needs of the people of the West are going to be catered for. Endemic short-termism appears to have overtaken most of the planning on the existing UHG site. And bearing in mind the Minister's vision and the setting up of the all-party Oireachtas Committee to look at a 10-year plan for the health service, of which I am a member, would the Minister agree that, considering UHG is the major acute hospital for the west of Ireland, we now need to grasp the nettle and look at the bigger picture?
Thank you very much, Deputy Naughton. Minister McGrath, you have 4 minutes to reply.
Thank you, Carla, and I want to thank Deputy Hildegard Naughton for raising this issue. I also welcome this opportunity to outline the up-to-date position with regard to health infrastructure developments at University Hospital Galway. These developments recognise that demand for healthcare is rising, with our elderly population increasing at nearly double the European average. Other factors such as the rise in obesity, chronic disease and advances in healthcare technology are also increasing demand for healthcare services. In this regard, the Programme for Partnership Government sets out a clear vision for health services in Ireland, which is community-based and responsive and accessible to patients. The development of primary care is central to this. By shifting the balance of care from hospital-centric system to one located in the community, enabling users to easily access a broad spectrum of care services through their local primary care team. The development of a new hospital anywhere in the county must be seen in the context of delivery of related healthcare services in the locality and region. With regard to Galway University Hospital, the State has invested in the healthcare infrastructure at the hospital site and continues to do so. Given the ongoing investment that has been made at UHG site, it would not represent value for money to walk away from this significant investment. A number of significant projects have been completed at Galway University Hospital in recent years. These include the clinical research facility, the upgrade to the maternity unit and the CF cystic fibrosis outpatient department, which was completed in 2014 and is now up and running and operational. There are also two major developments currently underway in Galway. Construction work is ongoing on the new 75-bed ward block, which will provide single-room inpatient accommodation. A new acute mental health department is underway and is expected to be completed in early 2017. Following the transfer of mental health services to the new acute department, work will begin on the construction of the National Plan for Radiation and Oncology Department, for which the HSE has already obtained planning permission. The programme for a partnership government is also committed to progressing a new emergency department facility for Galway University Hospital. The HSE Capital Plan 2016 includes funding for a full optional appraisal and cost-benefit analysis, informing planning and funding requirements for a new ED at the Galway University Hospital. The cost-benefit analysis is in its final stages and is anticipated that this will be completed shortly. If favourable, this will go to the design phase in 2016. The building of this urgently needed emergency department, and I take that, remains a capital priority for the Sales University Healthcare Group. Pending the development of a new ED in the GUH, in order to alleviate pressures and to ensure that patient experience in the existing emergency department is improved, 30 additional beds opened at the hospital in early 2016. There are no new plans to build a new hospital to be built in County Galway. Moreover, University Hospitals Galway comprises of both the UHG itself and Merlin Park, which is not far away. The rationale behind the establishment of the hospital groups is to facilitate collaboration between hospitals serving a particular patient population and to maximise the utility of existing resources. The Sale Hospital Group will continue to enable cross-development of both UHG and Merlin Park and to accommodate the best use and expansion of the service providers. Finally, further investment in individual hospitals must be considered within the overall acute hospital infrastructure programme and establishment of hospital groups. The development control plans have been completed on all major hospital campuses, including the University Hospital Galway. These provide a blueprint for future development and rationalise construction and capital expenditure. This exercise focuses on what constitutes good practice, planning and addressing service needs, and all current and future development of healthcare infrastructure will be based on this considered approach.
Thank you, Minister McGrath. Deputy Naughton, you have 2 minutes for supplementary.
Thank you, Minister, and I would like to thank Minister McGrath for his response. And I acknowledge the fact that the new 75-bed ward block will offer patients more modern single-room accommodation. But the simple fact is that it won't offer an extra bed, one single extra bed. And my point here today is value for money. And you raised the issue about walking away from the UHG site would not represent value for money. If we look, and Minister, if you investigate the amount of funding that has gone into namely the 2 projects that I outlined here today, it is an example of how we're not looking at the bigger vision, the longer-term vision for Galway and Galway's needs, and indeed right across the Western region. Questions need to be asked, Minister, as to whether these projects should have been allowed to proceed when it was apparent that they wouldn't bring any appreciable relief to the current crisis that exists in UHG. And prior to my election to this House, I stated that the UHG campus was at saturation point and was unfit to provide for the present and the future needs of people's healthcare right across the Western Seaboard. And I looked at the Merlin Park site, again, state-owned land. We have our Merlin Park Hospital, as you stated, Minister. And since that time, this assessment has gained the support of not only my political colleagues, but the clinicians and indeed the hospital management. And in the interests of the future healthcare of our citizens all along the Western region, we really do need to be looking at a plan, at phasing it out from UHG. I appreciate the investment that has gone into that site, but we need to be looking at a larger site, because where it is currently located, it's in the city centre, it's hemmed in, and because of parking restrictions, the Galway City Development Plan, we cannot have an extra bed without an extra car parking space, and that is simply the case. And we need to be looking at this state-owned land at Merlin Park, and we need to be looking at the 10-year plan and including UHG moving out to Merlin Park as part of that plan.
Thank you, Deputy Naughton. Minister, you have 2 minutes for
Can I just say, first of all, I welcome some of the comments made by Deputy Naughton in relation to these particular issues, because I think there are questions to be answered, and I accept that point. And also the fact that, and I welcome the fact that you welcome the 75-bed single unit. And we also, the issue of capital funding and how we spend our capital funding, of course, it has to be examined. She also mentions a very, very positive point in relation to the problems of the city development plan and the car parking issue. So what I'm saying today is I'm listening to the points you have raised, and you're saying the clinicians on the ground support your position in relation to this particular issue, which is, I think, we have a duty as well to listen to the people who run the services and listen to the service providers. So what I'll do is, in relation to this particular issue, I will go back to the Senior Minister, Minister Harris, and raise these particular concerns that you raised in relation to this debate. I know University Hospital Galway very well, because I spent a lot of time there and down there visiting relations and extended family members, so I know the situation and I know the problems about the people on trolleys and issues like that. So our job is to try and come up with sensible proposals, but part of our job as well, which the Deputy rightly highlights, is to see how we spend the money in relation to providing services for people on the ground. We have also got to recognise that in relation to chronic disease management, that's a major driver in healthcare costs, and it accounts for 80% of health spending. And the numbers affected by these chronic conditions is increasing by approximately 5% annually. And that's something that we have got to adopt as well. But in relation to the issues and the concerns that the Deputy has raised today, of course, I'll bring those concerns back to Minister Harris, and we'll see if there's anything that can be done in relation to this particular issue. And as I said before, we all have a duty to listen to the people and local representatives, but also the professionals on the front line. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister McGrath. Thank you, Deputy Naughton.